Hi everyone, my name is Cameron. I go by Cameron Robles on Instagram. I am a hair colorist at Moxi Hair Studio in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And today I want to talk in detail about how to get a volume hairstyle using a teasing method. So what I'm going to be using is three different brushes to kind of demonstrate. This one being maybe something that's a little bit more common. It's just a brush with really tight bristles, and it isn't the most effective tool, but you can still get the job done with it. The next step up is going to be a tail comb, which is going to have really tight bristles, so that'll be another option. And then the last option, which I think is the best option but the least common tool, is a teasing brush, something specifically designed to do this job. So what makes this one superior to the other two is that it's basically the best of both of them. Really tight bristles, really thin, has a pointy bit, and has staggered bristles. So this will be the best tool, and the other two are different parts of this. So first and foremost, when you're deciding on how to get your volume, you need to decide on how you're going to wear your hair. So in this instance, our model, the mannequin, has a center part, and a lot of her hair is being worn backwards. So if I kind of lift her up a little bit and show you her head a little closer, you can see that that center part starts obviously in the front and then comes back, and then there's a bit of a break, right? So the hair on this side wants to come down this way, the hair on that side wants to come down that way, and the hair through here in this region wants to come back. So it's really important for when you start teasing. You don't want to tease all the hair in the same direction. So depending on what tool you're using, this being the least helpful tool but still doable, it doesn't really have any like pointy edge. It's very kind of like dull, and this is meant for you to be able to grab a little bit easier. So it's not the best design, but you can get by with it. And I did want to show this because not everyone has every tool, and you don't necessarily need to go out and buy a bunch of stuff. Your sectioning on how big you take is going to be about the same size as this tool. So that is about an inch, a little less, a little more, give or take. Your sectioning doesn't have to be perfect, but it is helpful if you get the right amount of hair for control. So I will take about an inch straight back. And so what I have is a section of hair. I'll bring her closer again. A section of hair that is very thin, but if you look at it lengthwise, it's kind of like transparent and see-through. So this will make it a lot easier to handle. You get more control because you're not grabbing too much hair all at once. And with the comb, I'm going to be doing a scooping motion. So it's literally just a rocking of my fingers like that. It's not this up and down with a brush, but rather in and out. So I'm going to go ahead and get that brush in here, and then I'm going to start, I'm holding it the opposite way, but I'm going to start with the bristles that are technically the bottom, sweep down so the bristles on the top meet the bottom. So starting like this, coming down, coming down, coming down, coming down. So you can see how that's creating a bunch of little frizzy bits. So there's all these little frizzy bits, right? So what the brush is doing is it's catching that hair and it's coming down, and you're getting that. So when this section eventually falls back over, there's all that hair that's going to push it up. So that's how to do it with the least effective tool. So this tail comb is going to be the next effective tool if you don't have the best tool. So same sectioning, using these bristles now, and it is still a scooping motion. It's just only slightly better. Right? And then we'll let that fall over. And you can already see, even with it laying in the wrong direction, how you're already going to get some volume just from doing that. And then the next section, I'm going to do the best tool, which is the one that has the bristles specifically designed for this purpose. This is also the last section I'm going to be taking on this side, and the amount of sections you take are going to depend on how wide this forehead is. So for some of you, it may just be 2 sections. For some of you, it could be 3, 4. And if you have a ton of hair, like as far as like the individual hair fibers, you may even take a 5th section. So that's just going to be a case-by-case scenario. But the stopping point is always that kind of curvature of the head. If I take this section and kind of tease it and let it come back down, and then choose to take another one, now I'm creating volume that comes out rather than comes up and down. So it's going to be a little bit of a different shape, which is fine if you're looking for that, but the average person isn't. We want height at the top, and we want a little bit more slimness next to the face. We don't want to create more volume sideways because that elongates the face this way, and what we're looking for is height. So we're not looking for width, but we're looking for height. So I'm going to comb this section straight up and do my scooping. And you can see how quickly I'm able to create that volume. Then I'm literally just going to let that section fall down, grab my next one, let that fall down, grab my next one, and let that fall down. So you can see how crazy massive that section is. What you would need to do now is start to kind of smooth things down a little bit. So you can kind of see how there's residual frizz, but also if we look a little closer, there's a lot of separation. These things aren't really like together. What you're going to be doing is taking the bristles, not like this, but almost at a 45-degree angle, and you're going to lightly sweep over. And that sensation that you're doing, it's so gentle and so delicate, it would be the equivalent of trying to tickle someone's arm hair with the bristles, right? And so already you can kind of see there's a little bit of a difference between this side and this side. And then if you happen to flatten it too much, the only thing you need to do is take the tail end of the comb right in through there and just push it the opposite way, and you'll get your volume right back. So if you happen to be too rough on the smoothing, don't worry about it because all of that base is still there, right? To give you a little bit more height. So you can kind of lift it back up a little bit more. And now you've created more volume on one side, less volume on the other. I'm going to repeat the technique on this side, and then we'll be right back. So now that we're back, you can see how big and full I got this side, and you can actually even see a little bit of the difference between the two, and part of that has to deal with the tools. So even though there is more volume before we started, this side isn't quite as big as that side, and it's because there's not as much support. So I'm actually going to be able to go through and take that same section that I started with that comb that wasn't the best, but I was still getting some results. I'm going to go ahead and lift that section up. And I'm just going to get a little bit more support in there. The other thing too is you can kind of see how quickly I'm able to take that back combing out, that teasing. It's because I went through and did it in a scooping motion. So I'm just catching individual hair fibers. I'm not like ramming that in there and making it really hard to get out. So this is going to be really hard. It's going to cause a lot of tangling. It's going to be really difficult to take out later. And if you're tender-handed, it's going to be really painful to detangle. But even beyond that, being this rough on the hair actually causes more breakage. So if you do it the other way, you can still get the same effect without all the breakage and pain. So I'm going to kind of try and lightly take that out. Okay, so I feel pretty happy with the amount of volume that I got in there. So to make the mannequin look a little bit more interesting, I went ahead and just kind of flipped this over and did a lot of the same smoothing techniques that we were talking about. Really big, very Christian Stewart-y with the deep side part, and then showing off more of that color. So I thought that looked a little bit more interesting.